Welcome to Branded by Amazing. So this is episode number 1, and today we're going to talk about how much does it cost to start an e-commerce business on Amazon. So first off, I am Matt Clark. I am the CEO of Amazing.com. I've been basically a full-time entrepreneur in e-commerce since 2009. Originally created the Amazing Selling Machine program, was the only person years ago, and we've been able to help tens of thousands of people. I still do e-commerce, so I own a brand with a business partner. We were in the top 300 of Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies in America last year. Keep growing that. So I love doing this stuff, love helping people do that, and that's why we're here today.
And I'm Mike McCleary. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Amazing.com. Actually got my start in e-commerce back in 2013, learning from a program, Amazing Selling Machine, that Matt had started back then, and was able to quit my own job just within 1 year. And since then, worked more and more with Amazing, and finally came on board full-time a few years ago, and have trained over 30,000 people on how to build their own successful e-commerce businesses.
Yeah, so this is our first episode, so I want to give a little bit of explanation about, what we're doing here, why we're doing this. Big reason is, we want to be able to help as many people as possible build e-commerce businesses, and so there's always new things happening in this space. There's some things that we may not have a space to go into as deep as we can here, and we also want to be taking questions from you. So if there's any topics you want to learn about that you feel like you're not getting that information other places, we'll give you a link at the end of the show, at the end of the episode, to be able to ask us questions. So first thing is we wanted to talk about a little bit of recent news. So one thing just happened, which is pretty incredible, is a company called Perch, which I believe has been around for only about 18 months. And they're calling them a startup, which is kind of crazy because they just raised $775 million to acquire third-party Amazon brands. And those are people basically building the same kind of businesses that we're teaching you here and other places how to build. And so that's pretty crazy. And I know you've been talking to Thrasio a lot, who's in the same situation.
Yeah, Perch is just one of many that have popped up over the previous few years. Thrasio's raised already well over $1 billion to acquire third-party sellers. And there's another company, Razor Group, as well. And I've gotten, even before I knew the Thrasio people, I've gotten emails from both of them because, we're pretty successful on Amazon, and they're looking for businesses that are doing well, primarily on Amazon, so that they can acquire them and then roll them up. That's their entire business model. And Perch is just the latest to come out there and get some crazy amount of funding.
Yeah, so we're not necessarily sure what is this going to mean for the space long term. There's so much money going into it, so much money being devoted to acquiring these kind of businesses that it's definitely going to change the space one way or another, but no clue what exactly is going to happen at this point, but we're going to keep watching it. Either way, it's a good sign for people who want to sell these kind of businesses for now. So now, want to get into today's topic, which is, a question we get asked a lot, which is why we wanted to cover it, is how much does it cost to start an e-commerce business on Amazon? Because it's sometimes not a super simple answer because there's a lot of factors. And so, Mike and I, we've both built multiple brands on Amazon, off Amazon. We've helped lots of people do this. And so we kind of want to give you a general idea of what it's going to take. So we'll just start running through a few of these things. So first off is your Seller Central fee. So we recommend everyone, even if you're at the very beginning, to start with a professional account. It's $39.99 a month, which I feel like hasn't changed in 10 years for whatever reason. They have a plan that's a cheaper monthly fee, or maybe no monthly fee. I don't really remember.
It's no monthly fee, but you pay $1 per transaction, and you don't have access to a lot of the really neat features that you will need to be successful.
Yeah, so you need extra features, which is why we use the professional account. And basically, once you reach 40 sales, then you're covering your $40 a month anyway. So we just say, bite the bullet, go ahead and start with the professional plans.
Yeah, and the next fee goes to Amazon as well, and it's called the Amazon referral fee. I like to think of it as their commission. So every time you make a sale on Amazon, they take typically 15% of that sale. Some can be a little less. So it can be 12%. I think like automotive might still be 12%, but most categories in general, 15%, kind of like the cost to do business on Amazon, which, is absolutely well worth it because they're bringing in a couple 100 million buyers every single month to look for your products.
Yeah, and some people are like, oh, that's too expensive. But I mean, in my experience, because my first e-commerce business was selling on my own website, and I was paying Google, through AdWords, a ton of money to get clicks going to my own website. Being able to put products on Amazon, and for the referral fee component anyways, only having to pay whenever you actually make a sale is amazing, which is why, in almost every business that I'm involved in, whether it's Amazing, whether my e-commerce stuff, I love using affiliates because it's the same kind of structure. It's like, if they make a sale, you pay them. Otherwise, you don't have to pay them. That's the great part about Amazon. So I think 15% is a complete steal to be able to access everything they give you. So next one we have is the FBA fees. These are basically, for using Amazon's fulfillment network, or called Fulfillment by Amazon. They basically charge you for inventory storage, they charge you for picking and packing, and a few other related costs there, right, Mike?
Yeah, in order to take the returns back for you as well, which is great. You don't want to be handling customers returning products to you at your house or wherever you're at, especially if you don't live in the marketplace you're selling it. So Amazon does pretty much everything. They pick and pack, ship the boxes out, take care of customer service returns. The FBA fee, while it can vary based upon size, most products are what we call like a standard size tier. And in general, if you're trying to think like, what does that cost? It's about 15 to 20% of your sale as well. So if you add together Amazon's referral fee of 15% and then add together their FBA fee of 15 to 20%, you're talking about 30, 35% going to Amazon for every single sale. And then you're done with the fees to Amazon. And again, it may sound like a lot. Yeah. It's not, considering they're doing all the fulfillment for you.
Yeah, and you're basically going to have to pay somebody to do that regardless.
Right.
If you're selling a physical product, somebody needs to be storing that, packaging up orders, shipping that out to customers, handling returns. It's just the nature of selling physical products. Somebody has to be doing that. And so if you're selling on Amazon, you might as well let Amazon do all that, because of there's tons of benefits of doing that. And also the cost is reasonably cheap. So next one we have is your product inventory. So this is the biggest one by far. If you're selling physical products, building an e-commerce brand like we teach, is the amount of money you're going to spend on inventory itself. I mean, it is the thing that allows you to produce profit, to sell your business, to grow your business. It's what the whole business is based around. That's the nature of what you're selling. Just like if you were creating a software business, you'd have to spend money to develop the software. You're in a physical products business, so you need to buy inventory. So if you buy, say for example, we recommend typically, if you're starting out, that you have at least 300 units. And then, based on the selling prices that we recommend, somewhere between $20 and say $100 is the selling price of the kind of products that we recommend you start with. A cost for that is maybe around $5 to $25 per unit. And so if you buy 300 units at $5 to $25, your upfront inventory cost for the product itself is somewhere around $1,500 to $7,500. That's to get your 300 units. Fortunately, if you do the work and find a good product opportunity, you source it, you get a good supplier, all that sort of stuff, and you get a good high quality product, then that is an investment. It's not just like a cost you're not going to get back. You're investing money in that product so that you can hopefully sell it at a profit and be able to keep growing your business. So it's more of an investment than it is a cost, but that is probably the biggest expense in this whole thing.
And it doesn't mean that there aren't other cheaper options out there. I think we were just looking at some kind of like grips for weightlifting. Mm-hmm. I believe the cost for those is like $3.5.
Yeah.
So it is possible. We're just trying to give you like a realistic number that if you're starting out in general, somewhere between $1,500 and $7,500 is a good range for getting started.
When I first started selling on Amazon, I only sold health supplements. And so I was from the US selling health supplements. And so everything was sourced in the US. And so the business was relatively simple. Then we started teaching Amazing Selling Machine, and we started having people from other countries and people that wanted to source products from China. So we had to figure all this stuff out along the way. So Mike, maybe let's talk a little bit about the next one, which is kind of all wrapped together: shipping, freight forwarding, customs, tariffs, which for a lot of people you're starting out can sound kind of scary, but it's just part of the business.
Yeah, so one thing to keep in mind is right now we're, in the springtime, kind of heading into summer pretty soon of 2021. We're still feeling the after effects of the pandemic. So right now, shipping prices are higher than they normally are. So when you want to look and see exactly what you're going to spend on shipping, you'll need to know what the product is, because the dimensions can be all over the place. And the dimensions, I mean, not only the weight of it, but also the size of what you're shipping out there. But in general, if you're getting around 300 units, you're going to spend somewhere between $300 and $1,000 for shipping that in order to get that product shipped all the way from the manufacturer. If you're shipping from overseas, then you want to get all the way to somewhere like a warehouse in the United States or to Amazon. It's a pretty big range, because you can imagine the size of products range pretty widely as well. Now, one thing that's great about shipping, we're just talking about this the other day, is that as your business grows and you're able to order more and more products, you do not just double your shipping costs. They grow up just a very small percentage. One example I saw yesterday was the initial shipping was around $900 for 300 units. When we doubled that, it only went up by a couple $100, because there's these fixed fees in shipping. You have to pay for people to load the products, to unload the products. There's all kinds of, port fees that are just kind of out there, a flat fee. So those are fixed. But as you increase your sales, the shipping cost per unit will go down, which is really nice, because that's one easy way by just growing your business to decrease your costs and increase profits.
Yep. And then the next one, kind of related, is your inventory inspection. So if you're getting specifically inventory produced in another country, such as China, which a lot of people are. Before that inventory gets shipped from over there and it gets all the way over to the US, for example, and then you have to find out whether it was actually high quality and kind of meet your standards, you can use a service out there that'll inspect all that for about $200 flat fee, because they're just kind of spot checking some of your inventory. So they can do that in China before it ever leaves, which can save a lot of hassle down the road. Because even if the supplier is in the wrong, it's a little bit harder of a conversation if that's already been shipped all the way over here, because the shipping, like Mike said, can be pretty substantial. So you're much better off sorting that out in the country where it's being produced before it ever leaves the manufacturer's facilities.
Yeah, we used to. I remember when I started out, we did inspections here in the States and kind of fell into that trap. Yeah. Our supplier was great, but all they ended up doing was crediting us back for any missed, products that weren't working. But we had already paid for the shipping for that, for one. So getting it done over in China, absolutely the way to go.
Yep. So next one is the branding side. You want to touch on that one?
Yeah. So if you think about creating a brand, it's starts off as coming up with a name, whatever you want your company to be. We always like to think of your customers. What's something that's going to resonate with them related to your product? But after you come up with a name, you also want to get a couple things. One, you're probably going to want a logo, especially if you're going to create packaging or maybe put your logo on your product. And then you also may want to come up with some packaging. Now, your manufacturer can help you out with that. But one route to go to get some high-end packaging, be going to a site like 99 Designs is one we talk about, and usually for a couple $100, you can have a professional designer create a logo for you and give you some graphic files that you can then put into your packaging. Now the cost for this, you can go pretty cheap, anywhere from $50, maybe up to $300 to get a really nice design job done as well. And then that's a one-time cost, because you don't have to pay for that ever again. That's branding you can use throughout the entire life of your product.
Yeah, and if you go over to 99 Designs, I believe still, and this has been the same way for a while, I believe their lowest level logo package is like $299, around there. I haven't found a lot of better results getting their one or more expensive packages. So they have them that I think go up to like $500, $700 plus for a logo. It's just a bunch of random people submitting, files basically to submit for your logo contest. And in my experience, I don't know if you've seen something different, but I haven't really seen much of a benefit about doing anything above their cheapest plan. It's just kind of can be hit or miss every once in a while. But I haven't seen like a so much better quality by spending more for their logo.
No, same here. By spending more, you get more submissions. But usually the people, the lower level plans that are submitting, they're really good. I mean, the people on the 99 Designs they do this for a living. So you can pretty much count, you're going to find someone even at the lowest level.
Yeah, I would say the biggest tip there that I've seen is to give lots of feedback. Yep. If you just kind of sit back and don't tell them anything, like I like this, I don't like this, change that, then they're all just kind of flying blind, and they don't know if you're just kind of, not going to pick anybody, or you're just going to, kind of pick any random person that may not be them. But when you start giving them lots of feedback, you tend to get better logos, and they tend to start doing more submissions.
One tip is that if you're going to go to 99 Designs and come up with a logo and your brand name, I would recommend, one other cost of branding we're going to talk about was getting your domain before you do that.
Yeah.
Because we have seen on a few instances where we didn't get the domain for some people that are building a product. They went to 99 Designs and asked them to create some logos. And some people can see these different contests that go on there, and people go out there and just kind of grab a whole bunch of domains. So if you're going to do that, before you go out there and use 99 Designs, go get your domain. It's $10 for an entire year to get your domain for your website.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cool. So next, Amazon product photos. When somebody's looking at your product on Amazon, the photos are one of the most important aspects. And so we recommend getting good, nice, high quality photos. I do not recommend taking them yourself if you can avoid it. I know people want to do it because they like the kind of creative aspect and they think it looks okay. But I mean, from the customer's standpoint, they don't care how hard you work to create those photos. They just want really nice looking photos if they're going to spend their money on this product they've never heard of before. So there's a lot of different resources you can use. I mean, one that we've used for a while is just productphotography.com. I know they've gotten pretty busy, and I think their lead times have gotten a little bit slower. They've gotten a little bit more expensive, but good guy. I believe his name's Robert, that owns the business. So they've done a great job. We've worked with them basically since the beginning for probably 10 years now. So getting some good, nice product photos. The average cost is about $50 each these days. Yeah, so about $50 each. You probably want minimum of 4. Ideally, fill up all the slots, which should be 9 on most available products.
Yeah, between 8 and 9, depending on the product.
Yeah, cool.
We have some in-house ones that, we do. We're not trying to sell anything here, but we also have some in-house photography service we use, and Amazon has their own as well. I don't recommend using Amazon's photography service. They came out with that about 2 years ago. It was free at the time. They wanted to see what they could do. They have the products in their warehouse, and their thought was, we can go ahead, photograph your product for you. That way, we'll create an affordable picture for you. From what we've seen, they're just not the same quality that we would be creating ourselves, or a photographer working for you would create.
We just have a couple more, and then we'll kind of summarize the total cost of all this. So next one is advertising, and specifically Amazon advertising. So in most cases, you're running ads on Amazon to get traffic without losing money. So you calculate something called ACoS, which is basically your break-even point for advertising that product on a profit standpoint. And so ideally, you're spending the amount of money on ads that allows you to bring in revenue without losing money. And so if you're doing that, then you're spending money on ads and you're making some profit from the product, and those kind of balance each other out. So it's not necessarily an extra cost. You've spent the time and money and stuff to get this inventory, but then you're running ads. You're basically using up some of your inventory to get some extra traffic. You do this so you can get more reviews, so you can build rankings, all that sort of stuff. And so, which is a little bit strange because you're paying money for ads, but a lot of times we don't really consider that an extra cost. It's just part of how you do this business. Now, some people do want to run ads at a slight loss so that they can build up traffic and organic rankings and more sales long term. But in general, we recommend people, at least beyond the initial launch phase, to run ads at basically break even. So it's not necessarily an extra cost you're incurring beyond everything else we talked about.
And the goal here is that whatever sales that you're generating through your ads, even if those are break even, your other sales that you're making organically, as we call that, because you're increasing visibility on Amazon, people are seeing the product, you're getting rankings, those you have no ad costs. So that should make up for that and make profits. And one thing we didn't mention here as well, Matt, is that the cost for the ads aren't out of pocket. So Amazon simply deducts those from the money they pay for you every 2 weeks. So it's not like you need to have $500 in cash to send anyone to run ads. Amazon's going to run the ads for you, basically loaning the money, and then before they pay you, they just deduct the cost out of this. There's no cash out of pocket.
At some point, your product may sell fast enough that you need to reorder to stay in stock before you've sold out of all of that initial inventory, or maybe even you haven't sold out enough to be able to cover the next inventory investment. However, typically when you're ordering inventory, you're only putting 30% down and you pay 70% when the product's actually ready to ship. So a lot of times those can kind of balance each other out. Unless your product is just taking off super fast, or you need to order a ton more inventory the next time, or you haven't done some of your initial calculations very well, and your return on investment or ROI numbers are not kind of in your favor. And so otherwise, it's like you should be able to, hopefully anyways, reorder inventory without having to dump extra money in the business. Or if you do put extra money, it's because your business is growing so fast, and to me, that's kind of a positive. But we know a lot of people want to build this business on the least amount of capital as possible, and so ideally, you're able to do that, reorder inventory without having to put extra money in.
And with us giving that recommendation of 300 units minimum, if you do order the minimum and your product takes off, you're going to run out of inventory. It's just kind of like, it's one of the things, advanced sellers, we don't like to run out of inventory if we don't have to. But when you're starting out and you're really validating that this is a good product opportunity, you're limiting your risk, because there's no reason you should go out there and spend $10,000, $20,000 on inventory unless you absolutely know that product's going to take off. It makes sense to limit your risk, order 300, 500 units maybe there, knowing you're going to run out, and that's okay. If you run out, then once you've sold those, you take that profits, you place your order, and then that in another couple months, you'll be back up and selling. So don't worry about running out of inventory. It happens to almost every brand new seller out there.
So the last kind of cost category is what we're kind of calling other costs, which is basically like you can start selling on Amazon under your personal name. You don't have to go out there and form a corporation or an LLC or do any of that sort of stuff. So you can start with basically no cost there. Or on the other hand, you may want to go form a company. And so in Texas, and I believe some other states are similar kind of costs. It's about $300 you pay to the state to form the company. And then you may use a service. I mean, I don't have experience with this, but I heard you recommend it. It's incorporate.com. I've used attorneys. I've done it myself, but incorporate.com seems like a nice option too.
Rocket Lawyer is another one I've used.
Yeah. Incorporate.com, I believe, was like a couple $100 plus the state fee. And they would basically handle all the company formation stuff for you. So maybe total cost in there is like $500. If you go to use a traditional attorney, it may be double that, $1,000 for them to form your company. That's an optional cost. That's kind of up to you. Eventually, you'll want to do that, but maybe you don't have to do that when you first get started. Then we have insurance, so product liability insurance. Out of all the people we've ever helped and taught this business to, I can point to 0 that have had a product liability issue. On the other hand, some people have had those issues in other businesses, other markets, and it can be a big problem. And so it's kind of up to your risk tolerance, and you may want to talk to an attorney to get their advice on this. But getting product liability insurance is another option for you.
Right. And right now, Amazon seems to be reaching out to some sellers requesting that for proof of insurance. They've hardly done this at all in the past, and I believe the threshold is around $1 million in sales before you need to get product liability insurance, or it might be 3 straight months of a certain number. I don't know what that is, but unless they're reaching out to you, it's not something you necessarily have to have. If they do, it's very easy to get. There are lots of people out there selling product liability insurance, and it's not expensive. It's all based upon your revenue, your sales volume anyway. And so if you're not selling a lot, it won't cost a lot. And even if you are selling a lot, it's a very small percentage that goes towards it.
So the last major cost is taxes. And so in most cases nowadays, Amazon is collecting your sales tax. So you don't really have to worry about that if you're selling only on Amazon. Then there's income tax. And so this is going to be highly dependent. It's kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about here. But, if you're in the US, depending on your tax bracket, you may have to pay income taxes there. But it, is kind of affected by what expenses you run through the business that are legitimate. These are things you definitely want to talk to an accountant about when the time comes. If you're in another country, it's a whole different kind of situation. But if you make money, the government wants some of it. I mean, that's kind of, just something we all have to deal with, whether you have a job or a business or whatever.
At the end of the day, this is a business, just like every other business. And if you're making money, you have to pay taxes for that business.
Yeah. So the good sign is that if you're paying taxes, typically you're making pretty good money. So not really an issue, but it's part of anything. So if you add all this stuff together, we've talked about a lot of different things. I think we have, maybe 10 or 11 different kind of cost items here. If you add all this together for your average person who's starting from scratch, building a business on Amazon, an e-commerce business, owning their own brand, which is what we recommend, total cost from everything we've added together is $2,400 to about $9,500. So that's pretty reasonable from what we've seen. Some people may go more. Less and less likely you'll go less these days unless you just start with like an unbranded product or you have some sort of unique situation. You may be able to pull it off, and it is probably possible. But typically, say $2,400 to $9,500, that's everything included to start and grow your business. Plus, the $40 a month Amazon fee, professional seller fee for the account, which is pretty small compared to everything else. But that's the general sort of amount of money it looks like today it's going to take for you to start an e-commerce business on Amazon.
Yeah, which is pretty reasonable when you think about what it takes to invest and start in any other type of small business.
Yeah, and remember, about 2/3 of that is for your inventory alone. And so some of the other stuff may be one-time costs that you can never get back, such as getting your product photos, logo, that kind of thing. But 2/3 of it is your inventory, which is great, which means you have a pretty low cost structure for everything else. And that inventory is built so that you can go out there and sell it and make profit. And so I'm glad to spend money on inventory within reason because it means that you can make more profit down the road. And if anything bad ever happens, there's ways to kind of liquidate and get rid of inventory, sell it at a discount if you have to. So it's not just money that's stuck that even if you don't sell it, there's no way you can ever get it back, because there are. But in general, that's the kind of cost structure we see. So, what we want to do now is, typically we want to get into Q&A, but because this is the first episode, we don't have questions submitted, but we want to encourage you, please go over to Amazing.com/branded, BRANDED. We're going to have a little form over there for you to submit questions to us. We're going to pull those for future episodes. We may just answer them during the episode, or we may end up taking some of those and turning them into full-blown episodes. That would be the main topic for there. So please head over to Amazing.com/branded, BRANDED. Give us your questions. We would love to hear from you. But I think that's a wrap for today's episode. So thank you very much for listening, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
All right, take care.